very much to everybody for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you with us, and I hope you've had a great half term, whether that was last week or the week before, and that you're feeling suitably refreshed and ready to take on ActiveHub. So today we are going to spend some time hopefully demystifying some of ActiveHub and getting some greater familiarity with how it works, both in and beyond the classroom. So there's going to be quite a lot of information today that we will both be giving you. And we acknowledge that there might be a huge range of experience here in the room, from those of you who are really just getting started to those of you who feel quite confident already. But hopefully there'll be at least some nuggets in there for every one of you, and hopefully it'll be a really useful session. As Faina said, we have disabled the chat function today, but the Q&A is open. So hopefully we will answer lots of your questions as we go anyway, but if there are some remaining, then do feel free to pop them into the Q&A and one of our colleagues will be able to answer you on there. In addition to that, just wanted to remind you that there is another way of connecting with us if you have questions about our resources in any kind of way at all, and that's through our drop-in clinics, which are on Wednesdays. So these were launched just before half term, and we've got our second one this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So please do feel free to join us if you've got some outstanding questions that you'd like to raise with us then too. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the two of us on the call. So I'm here with my colleague, Caroline Fisher, who's a senior product manager on the digital team. And my name is Kate Benile. I joined Pearson as a product manager 2 years ago, but up until that point, I'd been a teacher of MFL and more latterly a head of MFL in a large secondary school. So I've very much been where you are. I've been through lots and lots of curriculum reform, different versions of GCSEs, different resources, and different platforms. So I do fully appreciate how much that takes in terms of energy and time to really get confident with new curriculum and new resources going with them at the beginning of an always very busy year. So yes, definitely feel your pain, but hopefully we'll be able to take some of that away from you today. So this session's more or less going to be split into two. So we'll be looking in the first part at the admin side of things, and Caroline will be going through with you how to really get set up. And there might be some of those teething troubles that you've had so far that hopefully we can erase for you. And then in the second part, we'll be looking at using ActiveHub in the classroom and beyond. So hopefully there'll be lots of, as I say, little tips and tricks that you can pick up from there. So just before we go on to the admin side of things, we have been listening really, really carefully to feedback that we've had since ActiveHub has been used in MFL classrooms since September. And we've been working on some improvements to hopefully make your experience and the students' experience even better. So I just wanted to run through those just in case, you know, in the hubbub of half term, you had missed them, or you've come back and sort of seen that things have moved and aren't as you had left them before half term. So I just wanted to explain what's happened and why. So looking at this first one here, what you can see on the left is the view that you used to have, and on the right is hopefully our new improved view. And what we've done here is to allow the page to expand more onto the screen. We've just moved the toolbar from the top to the bottom of the screen. So everything is still there. You've not lost anything, but it's just moved to the bottom. So you can see, for example, that the resources button, which is on the top left there of the previous version, is now bottom left of the new version. And next to it, you can see the toggle, which I'll show you a bit more later, between the double page and the single page view, which used to be in the settings button up there. So it just gives you a bit more of a bit bigger view of the page on the screen. Similarly, again, just thinking about improving the visuals there, we have increased the number of increments by which you can zoom in on a page. So on the left-hand side, again, you can see what that looked like previously. And then you can see on the right hand side how that is now. So you've got much greater ability to really fine tune the view and get it correct for your classroom. This one here is a custom zoom of a specific task. So when you're looking at a task in isolation, you'll see on the left-hand side, that's how that was looking. And on the right-hand side, we've just reduced the margins so that, again, the task just fills the space a little bit better and students get a clearer view. This one is similar. So this is for an audio activity, and we'll look at audio in quite some depth a bit later. But on the left-hand side, you can see that where we used to have the task and the audio player, when it was in its full view on the left-hand side, if we then minimized it, the task used to stay the same size. So that view of that task was the same. However, now, when we minimize it, as you can see on the right-hand side, the task again expands just to fill the space a little better. So we have got some more improvements coming your way as well. So we are making some improvements to the task experience. So we're going to look a little bit later at setting tasks for students, but you will have the ability to see activities that you've included, and also to delete activities. So that's something that we've heard quite a lot that teachers were keen to see as an addition. So that's coming. As our new filters and improved layout of our review tasks page. So again, hopefully that will be clearer, it'll be cleaner for you to navigate. And in Assessment Builder, we're adding a filter for the module number, so that you'll be able to, again, just more easily find the assessments for the required module. And we're continuing to work on improvements to the page load times to hopefully make that a sleeker experience for you going forward. And it's worth just saying at this point that on Help Hub, which we'll show you later, you will be able to see what's coming next. There'll be a what's next icon there that you can click on, and you can just see what is planned in terms of improvements. But please do keep talking to us, because we are listening, and we want to know how to make it even better than it is already. And finally, some exciting news. So we've been listening to teachers telling us how much they like the listening activities that are available on ActiveLearn. And from spring next year, we will start releasing our independent practice listening activities, which will hopefully be a really good addition. So these will cover dictation as well as other types of listening comprehension activities, and there'll be brand new audio with them. So it will give students a lot more to practice that important skill with. And there's going to be lots of information today, as I said, but if you just wanted some very short videos to have a look at, then there are some links here. So when you look at the resources, you will have these links. But if you want a quick reminder of some of the things that Caroline's going to go through in a minute, these YouTube links will be useful for you to refer back to. Okay, and so without further ado, I will hand over to Caroline, who's going to talk about getting set up. So I'll just stop sharing there.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm sure you're extremely busy at the moment, and we are grateful for you taking the time out to come and listen to this. And hopefully what you can take away from today is a few hints and tips, and it should help you to get more out of ActiveHub and hopefully save you a little bit of time there. So I'm going to take a look at how to get things set up in ActiveHub. And what we're going to be looking at is the admin section of ActiveHub. We'll be looking at how you can move your learners and your staff across from ActiveLearn to ActiveHub. We'll be having a look at bulk registration in ActiveHub, so setting up learners in bulk. A little bit about student password management, and then finally we'll be having a look at how you can create a group in ActiveHub. So this is the home page of ActiveHub, and as I said, we're going to have a focus on the admin area of ActiveHub. The first thing we're going to have a look at is authorizing ActiveLearn users. And I'm just going to come out of the presentation here and go into the admin screens of ActiveHub. So this is useful for anybody who has an existing ActiveLearn account. And what we've tried to do here is we tried to make it easier for you to get everything set up in ActiveHub if you're already using ActiveLearn. And we've brought across all your staff and your learners that were set up in ActiveLearn. So you don't need to set them up from scratch. What happens is they don't get access to ActiveHub straight away. What you need to do is go into the admin screens, and then on the left-hand side, you can see the panels here. Go to the Authorize ActiveLearn Users page. And all you need to do is find the names of either the staff or the students or both. And the ones you want to bring into ActiveHub, just tick their name and select Confirm Authorization. And what happens once you do this, your learners or your staff are going to be able to log in to into ActiveHub in the same way that with the same details that they log into ActiveLearn. You don't need to do anything more. Literally just tick the names of the staff and the learners, confirm their authorization, and they will get access to ActiveHub. And what you should see is their names will start to appear in the user accounts area of ActiveHub. So that's the quickest way, if you're an ActiveLearn school, to be able to get your staff and your learners set up in ActiveHub. If you're new to ActiveHub, you will want to set up your learners and staff here. And to do this, you want to go to the bulk create users area of ActiveHub. You can obviously just create single users if you want to, one at a time, but it's much quicker if you go to the bulk create users area. So there are some instructions here which you should read, and then what it will ask you to do is have a look at the template and download this file. And what you will do there is you'll have these details to fill in for your students. So pop in whether they're learners or staff, their first name, their last name, their email address, their year group, and the cohort, which is the year that they started at your school. Once you've filled in those details, it's really easy. You don't actually need to save this form, just copy it, go back to ActiveHub, to the admin screens in ActiveHub, and in this little space here, paste them. So do remember to include the titles of the columns as well, the headings of the columns. But that's all you need to do. So copy from the spreadsheet, pop it into this space, and then go on to the next screen. And here you're going to be asked to review and just check all the details are correct. If you're happy with that, then you would just create those 3 users. Obviously, you can edit them if some of the details aren't quite right. And what happens now is they'll be all sent emails welcoming them to ActiveHub. It's going to include a link and a temporary password. They will be prompted on their first login to update their password to something more personal to them. And that's it. Your learners and your staff will then be able to log into ActiveHub and use ActiveHub. So that's how you get your staff and your learners set up in ActiveHub. The next thing we're going to have a look at is how to create a group. Now, this could be, you might call this a class or a teaching set. In ActiveHub, they're called groups. So go to the area that says Create Group and Add Courses. What we've got here is a really simple 5-step process, and we'll take you through that in the setup to follow, where you add your learners, you add your teachers, you add the course, and then you review and confirm. So I'll just show you how to set up a group here. So pop in a group name. Then on this screen, we're in step 2, so we're adding the learners at this point. So you can either just tick names here, or you can bulk add them from your CSV if you wish to. It's another quick way to do it. So select your students. In this screen, select your staff. You can either search to find the staff and then go on to the next screen. And then in this screen, you will probably see a list of subjects that will be more familiar to you. You'll probably see your MFL subjects in here. So I'm just going to find the Spanish ones there. Select the subject, select the course, and also add in the course length. Now, if you're doing a 2-year, for example, Key Stage 4 course, you would want that possibly to start in September 2024, finishing in the summer of 2026, and then you move on to the next screen. Here you can check all the details. So we're on step 5 at the moment. We're checking all the details are correct in here. And if we're happy, we can create the group there. So I would allow a few minutes at this point for the groups to be set up. But once you've done this, you will be able to assign content to that group. And Kate's going to show us how to do that shortly. So once you've got your learners and staff set up, you've created a group. Everything from then on you will manage through user accounts. So it's at the top here in the admin screen. So here you'll be able to edit them either in bulk or individually. You can reset passwords here. You can add emails, change year groups, and many more things as well. So in order to edit anybody, tick the name of the student, go to Actions, and then Edit. And you'll see a panel on the right-hand side appear here. And you will be able to edit any of these items and then just update them. This is also where you would reset a password for any of your staff or your learners. Now that's how you would do that for an individual. But if you wanted to update a number of people, so learners and staff combined, not a problem, just tick all the names. Again, go to Actions and Edit, and you'll see this screen on the right-hand side here. So this is where you could edit your groups in bulk, so moving students up from one year to another year. You can also update emails. So via the CSV, you can add in all the emails and update that in bulk for a number of your students. You may have noticed that students will manage their own passwords in ActiveHub, and they can request a new password from the login screen. So when you go to that login screen, there's a prompt there for forgot your password. So students can just do that and reset their own passwords. And the reason why we've done this, and it's slightly different in ActiveHub to ActiveLearn, is basically for a few reasons. One of them is so that students can feel confident that others don't have the visibility of their passwords and their security is maintained. It's also really quick and easy now for students to reset their own passwords. As I said, just do that from the login screen, or you can do that for students yourself through this admin screens that I've just shown you. But actually, it now means that teachers no longer need to manage and administer passwords. So hopefully that will be a bit more time saving for you. I'm going to hand now back to Kate, who's going to have a look at the classroom and beyond.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I'm just going to share my screen here. There we go. Okay. Can I just check that you can see the PowerPoint again? Yeah, lovely, great.
Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, so we're going to look at predominantly how we're using the front of class resources, but also we will move on to assessments a bit later. So let's get started. What we're going to be focusing on today is largely finding the resources where they all are, how we open them, how we preview them, and so on. How we get the most out of the listening activities, and then how we use a Zoom functionality. We'll also be looking at mixed ability teaching, which is obviously a reality for most of us, I imagine. And then, as I said, moving on to creating assessments. So let's start with where everything is. So you'll be very familiar by now with the ActiveHub dashboard. And we're going to be looking first and foremost into this resources and tasks area and just explaining where everything is. And again, there might just be some things here that you haven't quite discovered yet. So this is what it looks like. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the difference between the courses area, and the ebooks below. So in the courses area, you've got everything to do with those courses. So everything to do with AQA GCSE French, everything to do with AQA Pearson EdXL GCSE French, and so on. And we'll have a look in those in a minute, but that's where you go to find just that greater overview. And then underneath here, we've got the classroom ebooks, so the teacher version and then the student version. And we'll have a look at those in a minute just to see what the difference is between the two. So let's have a look at the courses first of all. So as we open up ActiveHub here, we will get that overview just coming up, and we're going to click on resources and tasks there. And I'm going to go into the Pearson EdXL GCSE French one. So I click on there, and what you will see is you've got the overview, and then you've got each of the individual modules there. Now, I just wanted to look in the overview because that's not perhaps an obvious place to look, but actually we have added a few resources here that you might not have found yet. So firstly, we've got the student book answers. So I know some teachers have been looking for those. So when we look into this folder here, you can see Word documents for each of the modules and at each tier. So you might want to, for example, just get the foundation ones, and you might want to just print those off, or perhaps save them somewhere, download them, or share them with somebody, but they are all there. So it's an easy way to just find all of them all together. So that's the answers. And then also in the overview, we've got our schemes of work. So again, people have been asking us where these are, and we've been directing people accordingly, but they're now here. So that's a nice and easy to find those. And finally, we very recently added our vocabulary trackers. So do have an explore of those, but they will show you where all of the vocabulary is covered across our resources. So have a play with those, and they should be really useful. So let's go into a module now. So I'm going to go into module 1 here. And as I said, you will find everything here, all of the associated resources for the module. So I'm going to go into Unit 1. And as I scroll down, you can see that we've got the independent practice activities, both for grammar and vocabulary. We've got audio files, we've got transcripts, answer PowerPoints, everything is there. So Caroline mentioned earlier sort of setting tasks for students from here, and I just wanted to show you how you might go about that. So I might have a class where I want to set them a homework activity. I want them to practice the grammar that we've been doing in class. And my class, let's say, is predominantly foundation. So I'm going to go into this level filter here and just click on foundation and apply. And the resource type I said I wanted was the online activity. So I just want the independent practice activities. And I just want the grammar there. Sorry, come out of it. There we are. I just want the grammar. And there we go. So I'm just going to scroll down and apply that there. So I can open up my activity, obviously, and have a look, but I've done that. I know that that's the activity I want to set. So I can then click on Create Task here in the top right. So as I click on Create Task, oops, select a resource. Sorry, I forgot to tick it. There we go. There. So I'm going to pop in the task name. So I'm going to just call it Homework 1. And my group comes up here. So I'm going to select my Year 10 group. The dates are there. They speak for themselves. I'm going to leave them as they are. And then here in the student box here, I've got all of my students listed. Now, as Caroline said before, you might just want to choose some of your students. So I might have some students for whom the higher task is actually more appropriate. So I might say I want all of my students apart from these two to do the foundation. So I can then apply that, and then I would click on in the bottom right-hand corner here, Assign. And as I click on Assign, that would then notify those students that they have a task to do. And then I could go through the same process and obviously set the higher version for the other students. So it's actually a really nice, discreet way of differentiating your homework without being too obvious about who's doing what. So that's how we would assign the tasks there. Okay. So I'm just going to go back into the presentation here, and we're going to look at the differences between the teacher book and teacher ebook and the student ebook. So I've got here on the left-hand side a double page from the teacher ebook. And you can see the resources panel down the left-hand side. I know it'll be quite small on your screens, but you can see that there's a lot there. So you've got the audio, you've got the transcripts, you've got PowerPoints for the phonics, you've got Word documents of sheets and so on. But if you look at the student version, it's much more limited. So it's limited to just what they need. So you don't necessarily need them to have access to all of the resources that are associated with the double page, but they would benefit from having access to the audio and the transcripts and so on. So you can see that their version is much more reduced. And we'll have a look at this resources panel in a bit more detail now. So here is a resources panel from the teacher ebook, so that you can see a bit more clearly exactly what's on there. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So firstly, obviously, we've moved away from the hotspots. And I think the main advantage of this is that you can really clearly see absolutely everything which is associated with these pages. So it's super clear, you can't miss anything. I know sometimes when I was teaching from the book, sometimes I might miss that there was a PowerPoint there or miss a worksheet that was actually, would have been quite useful, but I didn't see the hotspot for it. Whereas here you can see the whole list in front of you and it's super clear. So on the This Page tab of the resources panel, you'll see everything that's absolutely integral to the double page, as you can see there. And then on the Other Resources tab, you can see sort of supplementary, complementary activities. So here you can see our sentence builders, there's a grammar quiz worksheet, there's a speaking confidence worksheet, and so on. So these will differ from one double page to another, but that gives you a flavour of where you might find things in the resources panel. I also wanted to just pull out here our new enhanced PowerPoints, our enhanced answer PowerPoints. So these are new for these courses. So previously, we would have had answer PowerPoints, and we still have some which are relatively simple, where an activity is quite straightforward. So one that perhaps requires some matching. Wouldn't necessarily need any explanation around it. But where an activity is more complex, then we have provided these answer PowerPoints which are enhanced, which have a little bit more clarity around them. So if we look at this one, you can see that the activity here on the left-hand side is a reading text, and students have to fill in the gaps. They have to complete the sentences to show their understanding. And the answer PowerPoint, as you can see, has the answers coming up on the left-hand side. These come up one by one with the gaps clearly in bold. But on the right-hand side, you have that text so that students can see exactly where those answers came from. So this is really, really useful, I think, because sometimes there might be quite a few students who've got one answer wrong, perhaps they've got number 3 wrong, and you can really quickly, and they can really quickly identify where that answer came from, and you can hone in on the vocabulary or the grammar that was tripping them up. So this one, you can see it's all color-coded, but this one also has numbers alongside it, so that because the text is quite dense, so it's really easy to find where those answers came from. I also wanted to just spend a moment on our phonics resources, although I will come back to these a little bit later. But really just wanted to say here that these are now integrated into our ActiveHub offering. So whereas before with the Key Stage 3 ones, they are a little bit separate from the book, these are now very much part and parcel of the course. So do look out for those. So the PowerPoints will obviously give students practice of the key sound symbol correspondences, but also there are games with them and dictation activities and read aloud activities. So there's an awful lot there. And I'll say it again in a minute, but just to remind you that these must be downloaded in order to maximize their use, because there's such a lot going on in them that they need to be downloaded before they can be really fully appreciated. So in terms of sharing resources with students, so we've looked at sort of allocating tasks to them, but if you were setting a homework, for example, perhaps a written homework, and you wanted them to look at a specific page, it's quite nice to be able to just share the link to that page with students. Now, just a big sort of red flag here. If you try sharing it from the teacher ebook, then you'll run into a problem. So that won't work. So you absolutely must share it from the student ebook. So as I said before, the double page itself will look very similar. The resources panel will look slightly sort of lower in terms of what it's got on there. But at the bottom here, in the bottom right, you can see it says share page, and you would just click on there and copy that link. So if you use Satchel 1 or another homework platform, you can just pop that on there with the homework, and then students can automatically see the resource they need to complete their homework with. If you want to share audio, you can also do that. So via the resources panel here, if you click on the share preview, again, that will create a link. And what that will do for students is that it will take them to this page, but it will also automatically open the audio for them. So again, they've got the kind of context there, as well as the audio file that they need to do their homework. So moving on to listening activities then. So let's have a look at how we can make the most out of these. So one thing, it's worth saying that as in all of our previous resources, our listening activities are always identified with the little blue icon there with to listen in the relevant language. But I also just wanted to point out that sometimes you might find activities which are perhaps have a dual purpose. They perhaps have two skills that they are practicing. So if you look on the right-hand side here, this exercise 3, it does say there, listen to the teacher asking the 2 follow-up questions, translate each question into English and prepare your own answers in French, then listen again and respond to the teacher. So you can see that actually this activity here has got a number of things going on, and we're identifying it as a speaking activity because predominantly that's the skill the students are practicing here. But there is a listening file attached. So do just watch out for those ones. But actually, they are quite easy to find because when you hover over the activity, you will see the relevant resources being highlighted here. You can see them here in pink. So you can see that the audio comes up nice and clearly there. Now let's look at the audio player itself. So I'm going to just open one of these in one of our books now. So the audio player, which we looked at just a moment ago when we were looking at the improvements that we've made, has itself been improved since its previous version. So it's now got quite a lot of extra features that we didn't have before. So I'm just going to go to Unit 3, I think here. Let me just open that up. And there we go. So if I hover over this exercise 2 here, as I said before, you can see on the left-hand side the relevant documents come up in pink there. And if I click on that task, up it comes with the audio player here. So obviously it's got the play and pause as before, and we can go back and forward in sort of 10-second chunks. We can adjust the volume, but what's new is that we can alter the playback speed. So this could be really, really useful in the classroom, I think. If you haven't played with it already, then it'd be good to sort of experiment, see how that goes. But I think that there are quite a few opportunities in the book for tongue twisters and sentences that practice the different phonemes in them, for you to see whether students can keep pace with it if you increase it, or perhaps you need to slow it down to try and just make sure that students are really understanding how to pronounce a particular word, perhaps. You could also, in the dictation task, there might be a sentence that students are really struggling over, or perhaps one word. And again, you might want to just slow it down so that students can really have a better chance of just getting that word. So do have a go with that, increasing and decreasing. I think students will probably find it quite fun to increase it as much as they possibly could. So how might we use the audio player in the classroom? Well, we could simply have the task up here, and as I say, press play there and pause as it goes. And what you will see, I won't play it now, but as it plays, each item or question will be highlighted so that actually students can really track where they are in the listening as well. So sometimes you might have students who get a bit panicky, they get a bit anxious and they lose it and they can't find their way back in. But actually seeing those questions highlighted will perhaps give them a bit of confidence so that they can say, okay, I didn't get question 1, but okay, I know where I am. Question 2, I can have a go at that one. So that's another nice new feature of this audio player. But I might want to just reduce the cognitive load for students altogether, and I can minimize the audio player so they are just focusing on the task instructions if I wanted to. I could then freeze that on the screen so that they have that view, and I could then go back so that I've got greater control of the audio player sort of behind the scenes, if you like. And then another way you might want to use it, so you could, if you had like a longer listening and you felt it was quite important for you to track the listening and go through the transcript, you could have the transcript up in its preview view so that you can see the transcript, you know when the tricky bits are coming, you can stop it accordingly and so on. You've still got your audio player up there, but the students are seeing that frozen view of just the task. So there's quite a lot of ways you can sort of manipulate the audio there. And just on the transcripts, those are fully editable Word documents. So again, really useful in mixed ability classrooms to print a couple out, perhaps for some students who would benefit from tracking the audio, or some might want to do it as a gap fill activity. So those are really useful as well. Okay, so that's the audio player, that's the teacher view with the transcript. And back to the phonics now. So I'm just going to show you how we download those and where everything is on those. So again, if I hover over the phonics box there, you can see that the relevant documents come up on the left-hand side. And incidentally, the other way around happens as well. So for example, if you were looking down here and you thought, okay, what is this PowerPoint to do with? If I left click on that, you will see that it comes up in blue there. So it works the other way around too. But if I go into download this, this PowerPoint here, and I do have to fully download it, so I'm just going to download from the top here and then open it from my downloads. It might just take a moment to open there. There we go. And then I'm just going to enable the editing there. Okay, so here we can see the first sort of introductory slide here, and underneath here, it's worth pointing out that you've got the teacher's notes and the audio script. So for this initial slide, that might be fairly obvious, but actually if I looked at the second slide here, this activity, you might not be sure how to use it as a game. So there are the instructions underneath, and as well as the words, and then you've got the reading aloud task there. And again, just some teachers' notes on how you might best exploit the activity, and some additional notes there sort of on a cultural theme. So, but just a reminder that they do need fully downloading for you to be able to actually access all of the listening and the game that comes with it. Okay, so now on to mixed ability teaching. So I know this is a kind of hot topic for most of us now, I think. So lots and lots of GCSE classrooms will be mixed ability settings. So we have designed our resources so that they can be used much more in parallel than ever before. So you will be aware already that when you're looking at Module 1, Unit 3 in the higher book, that it will look very, very similar to Module 1, Unit 3 in the foundation book, and that there will be a similar range of activities and that the foci will be equally similar. But how do you use these in the classroom? Well, simply put, it's kind of 2 tiers, 2 tabs. So to have the higher version open on one tab and then the foundation on another. So if I just do that here, so I've got the higher version here, and then I'm just going to go to my foundation version, and I will open up the same module, which I think was Module 1, Unit 3. I'm just going to close my PowerPoint there. And you will see a very similar range of activities coming up. So here we go. There. Okay, so I've got my foundation here and I've got my higher there. So in my mixed ability classroom, I might decide that everybody is going to be beginning with the same listing, that we're all going to do exercise 1. But actually, as we progress, then there's a need for students to be doing different things at their own level. So how do I do that? Okay, so what I can do is I can display the 2 pages side by side. And I do that by I'm just going to get rid of the resource panel. So I've just got my 2 double pages. Then I'm just going to look at page 12. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here and click on the single page view. And I'm going to do that for my higher version as well. And then I'm just going to left click on my higher version here at the top and just pull it down and across so that I'm splitting my screen. And then I'm going to just click on the other window there. So I've now got my foundation page on the left-hand side and my higher on the right. So everybody can see what they need to see to be able to be working at their level. Now I can zoom in if I wanted them to look at a particular section. I could do that on both of these, or I might, if I go out again, I could select a particular activity. So let's say I select exercise 3 here, and the equivalent is exercise 4 for the higher. You can see I've got the 2 translations side by side there. So you could have students perhaps beginning on the foundation, and then perhaps they might find it quite easy and they might move to the higher, or you might have some who you want to start with the higher and they might then find that they're struggling a little bit and be able to easily just toggle back to the foundation. So that's just one way in which you can use the resources sort of side by side in a classroom. So I think that's all on mixed ability. Let me just bring that up there. Yes, that's our side-by-side view there. And finally, just moving on to the Zoom functionality. So you've seen quite a lot of this already, but I just wanted to spend a few minutes just concentrating on this. So we've just talked about the 1 and 2 page view. So sometimes just to say that students don't have quite so much to navigate around, you might just want to reduce what they're seeing from the double page to the single page, like that. And as I said, that now is at the bottom of your page next to the resources icon, and it just looks like that. But you can also zoom in on one activity, of course. And if we just have a look at one of those now, I'm just going to go to Unit 5 here, and I'm going to put the double page back. and this is the activity I had there. So it's quite a chunky activity, so I might want to just have this one activity displayed on my screen in isolation. But also I can use these backwards and forwards arrows to just scroll through the different activities. So that means I don't have to keep coming in and out of the double page view. So it's a nice, easy way to just scroll through all of the activities in that zoomed in view. And zooming and freezing with the audio, we've already talked about, but again, just a reminder that you can minimize the audio player so that students can just really focus on the task whilst you can see the whole audio player, as I say, behind the scenes with it frozen. And the page zoom, so you might be thinking, well, you know, why would I need to zoom in on the page when I can just zoom in on the activity? So if we look at a specific activity, let's look at unit 4 here. So if we look at exercise 3 here, so here they have to read the 2 text messages and translate one of them into English. So that's nice and easy when they've got it on the board like that. But if I scroll through to exercise 4, it's now a speaking activity, and they need to turn the exercise 3 text messages into 2 voicemails, read them aloud, and then create a new voicemail. So in order to do that, they need to see exercise 3. So that's where your page zoom might come in handy, and you can make it really quite big now. So here they can see exercise 3, they can see the instructions for exercise 4, plus they have the grammar box there to support them with their use of the near future, as is the focus there. So that's why you might want to use just the page zoom. Okay. And I think that brings me back to assessments, and I'll just hand over back to Caroline there. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you. Thanks again, Kate. Let me just share my screen as well. And hoping you can see that now. And we're going to have a look at creating assessments. So to find all the assessments from the home screen, you would just be having a look at for the assessments area. And in the assessments area, you will find the assessment library. And in the library is where we have a set of ready-made assessments that have been written by our MFL experts that you can just simply view and download the PDFs. And we will have a look at how to do that shortly. So it's basically, as it says, a library of assessments. You've also got Assessment Builder. And in the Assessment Builder, you can actually build your own assessments from the bank of questions. So you would follow the 4-step guide to build your own assessment. We will also take a quick look at the insights that you can get from your tasks, and also have a look at what next steps are included in those insights. So I'm going to come out of the PowerPoint now and have a look at ActiveHub so we can have a look at this in reality. So from the home page, you go into the assessments area. And what you'll see here is you have the assessment library, assessment builder, and mark entry. You've also got the menu items on the left-hand side if it's easier to use those. So if we go and have a look at the library, and we'll take a look at Spanish. This is the assessment library. Currently in here, we have sample assessment materials, and we have end of module assessments up to module 6. We're working really hard to add more module assessments. So you will shortly see modules 7 and 8 being added in here. And then in the new year, you will see some end of year assessments. So please do watch the space because there'll be more coming. You'll see in here, we've got assessments for each of the 4 skills in Foundation and Higher for Edexcel and AQA. On the left-hand side, you'll see the filters, and that helps you narrow down the list of assessments to find the ones that are most relevant to you. So for example, we could select the module tests, and you'll see on the right-hand side, it's now displaying all the module assessments. And this is the page navigation down at the bottom there to view different pages. So to take a look at a paper, click on View. And here you're going to see the question paper, the mark scheme related to that paper. Any resources, you'll see the transcripts related for that paper. And then in the audio, you'll see the audio files for that particular paper. And if it's the paper that you want for your students to sit, just click on Download, select the items that you want to download and download them. And then you can give them in a paper format for your students to complete. These assessments are brand new. They have been built with a new spec in mind. So hopefully they're going to be good practice for your learners. It will help them prepare for their exams, and hopefully it's going to check their understanding of what you've taught. And that's it really. That is the assessment library where you can pick and select which assessments you want to use. Now, if you want more flexibility around what you want to include in your assessment, you can actually build your own assessment. And to do that, you'd go to Assessment Builder. So we'll take a look at Assessment Builder for German. And what you'll see here is you've got some filters at the top here that you can use to help select the most relevant questions. The bank of questions you'll see sitting underneath there. And there are hundreds of them. And as I said, we will be adding more of these questions as well going forwards. So what you can do to find the relevant questions is you could type in something in the search bar, for example, type in family. And as you can see, the number of questions displayed will reduce to show the ones that are relevant to family. You can also use the filters. So, for example, if we wanted to put together a writing paper, just show all the questions related to writing. You could actually be a little bit more specific than that if you wanted to pick, for example, all questions that are about picture descriptions. All of these filters work together with each other, so you can select different filters and they combine together to narrow down the choice of questions. So these are the questions that you'll see sitting underneath here. Click on View to have a look at the question. Here you've got the question, and you'll see options across the top there to view the mark scheme for that question, the resources for that question, and then in the audio, you'll see the audio file for that specific question. So we've broken the audio content down into individual questions. And if you look at that question and think, yep, that looks fine, you can add it to your paper. And you can use these arrows left and right to scroll between the different questions. So add the questions that you want to include, either through this route, or you can use the page numbers at the bottom here to scroll through the different pages. And I'm just going to randomly select some questions here. I haven't used the filters at the moment. I'm just showing you how this all works. So I'm going to randomly add a few more. And once you're happy with the questions that you selected, move on to the next step. So hopefully you saw this is a 4-step process. So what we did first of all was add the questions. We're now in step 2 where we're reordering and previewing the paper. In step 3, we'll complete it, and in step 4, we'll summary and save it. So what we've got on the left-hand side is an overview. So this tells us that with the 8 questions that we've got selected, it's going to be about 50 minutes to an hour long, this paper to complete. On the right-hand side, you'll see this ramping chart. And what this shows is how the level of difficulty ramps up or down as the students go through and complete the paper. By chance, it is by chance, with the questions I've selected, this does ramp up as you go through the paper, but it may not be the case when you first have a look. So what you can do is you've got the questions shown underneath, and you can just click and drag and move them around, and you'll see that they get moved around in this chart as well here. Now, speaking questions aren't graded, which is why you can see there's no bar there to represent the speaking question. You can preview the paper by selecting on Preview. And this will show you a quick preview of the question paper that you've built. It will show you the mark scheme, any resources, so any transcripts, and also it will show you all the individual audio files there. So if you're happy with the paper, you're happy with the size, the questions you've selected, and the order of those questions, you can move on to the next step. Now, this is where you're completing the assessment and saving your details. So decide what kind of test you want it to be, a module test in this case. Pop in the name of your assessment. And select the skill that it's testing. So you can either build a paper on one individual skill, or you can build it on a mixed set of skills. And then the date here is the date that it will be available for others to use in the assessment library. So if you want to continue editing and playing about with it, and you're not ready to share it with others in your school yet, make sure that that date is in the future. If you are happy with it, pop the date in. You can also add in a cover sheet if you want to, and then you would publish the paper that you've just built. Now, this is a little note just to let you know that we aren't providing grading currently, and that's because obviously the students haven't sat their final exam series yet. So what will happen is after 2026, once we have the GCSEs have been sat, we'll be able to provide, use that guidance to provide some indicative grades in here. At the moment, what you'll get is in the insights area, you'll get the marks and percentages, but you're not going to see any grades, not until 2026. And if you're happy with that, just publish the paper there. So that's how you would build and create your own assessment. I did just want to follow up on something Kate was just showing earlier on. In the resources area, she showed you how you could create a task and assign that to your students. Now, once your students have completed it, you can go into the review tasks area. So in this case, we set a piece of vocab from module 1 for homework here. And the students have now completed the activity. If you want to see the results from that, click on the View Task Insights button up here. And because that activity is all auto-marked, you don't have to do any marking there. Those results, once the students have completed it, once they've handed in the activity, those results will automatically feed through into the Insights area of ActiveHub. So we're now looking at the insights, and you can see here the results for each student. It will also identify students that are still working on it and haven't handed it in, and those that haven't started it. But you can see the percentage marks, the percentages that they got, and also you can see their marks down here. You can also see how long it took each student to complete the activity. So all of that is done for you. You don't have to worry about entering any information for that. That's all automatic. If you go into the breakdown area, what you'll see in there is how your group on average did for each of the questions. And you can sort that to have a look at which question they struggled with versus which question they did really well at. And underneath there, you can see your RAG analysis, so your question level analysis. So for question 1, which students got that right and wrong, and what marks they got for each of those. So a quick view of the results from your paper. And then finally, just to show you in the next steps area, this is where we're trying to give a little bit of guidance around what to do next. So you'll see here, some students will be identified as needing a little bit more work and a little bit more support. And you'll see some students will be identified as needing a little bit more stretch because they did quite well and got their answers on the first attempt for this paper. Do have an explore of the rest of the insights area of ActiveHub. You can't break it, so just have a play about with it and see what it's going to tell you, and hopefully it can save you a little bit of time on that analysis because it's all done for you in there. I'm going to hand back to Kate now just for some final words.
Thank you, Caroline. I'll just share my screen just for the last time. Almost done. Thank you for bearing with us. Yes, hopefully you can see my screen there with just some support with ActiveHub. So hopefully you've got answers to lots of your questions today, one way and another. But should there be anything that's still kind of on your mind or something that you still haven't managed to crack, then there are lots of different ways to get some support with that. So these will all be on the slides that you will receive, or that you have got, sorry, from the resources section today. But also, we just wanted to mention HelpHub. So we've mentioned it a couple of times today, but just making sure that you know where to find it. So if you look on this top right-hand corner here of this screen, you'll see this question mark. And in each section, when you click on the question mark, that will take you to the relevant sort of tips and tricks tutorials on that section of ActiveHub. So you can see here I'm in the resources and tasks section, but if I were in the admin bit and I clicked on HelpHub, this is the sort of view I would have. So you can see that it breaks it down into all the sorts of things that you might want to find out a bit more about in HelpHub. So I think that brings us to the end there. Just a reminder again about the drop-in clinics, which are on Wednesday. So please do feel free to bring any questions from this or regarding our resources in general to those clinics. I know my colleagues have been furiously sort of typing answers into the Q&A, but I just wondered, Danny, is there anything just to pick up on in the last minute or two that you just wanted to share with everybody?
No, only to say that we've been keeping a record of all the questions that are being asked. We think we've answered pretty much all of them, but we will be capturing all the questions and our responses and then sending a follow-up FAQ document round to everybody who's attended. So you'll have a written record of the questions that are being asked and our responses to them to support you as well. But otherwise, I think we've covered most things. There are still a few questions coming in.
Great, that's lovely. Thank you very much. And there will also be a feedback form following this webinar. So again, if there's anything else that you'd like to know about or anything that you'd like to tell us about, then please do use that to communicate with us as well. So thank you very, very much for sticking with us. Lots of information, a long time on a long day, I'm sure. But yeah, have a great evening when you get there. Thanks very much.